Hello, everyone, and welcome to another video here on the Sports Daily Media Network YouTube channel. I'm your host, Sean Vowells, and as usual, I'm joined by Mike Koomar. And Mike, we're looking for topics to talk about here kind of in the middle of Feast Week without doing full-on recaps of MTEs, and we're going to spend some time on the Big East. It has been tough for the conference that has the back-to-back national champions in it. They're looking like they're not great. Villanova's looking like they're not great. Creighton's looking like they're not great. And our weekly The Big East Stink segment is back with its own video this time. Mike, let's go through UConn first. They have now lost 2 games in a row in Maui. They are headed to the 7th place game. They lost to Memphis yesterday. Take us through what went down there in the Lahaina Civic Center.
Yeah, crazy finish last night against Memphis. They overcame a 13-point deficit with 4 minutes to go to send this game into overtime. But in overtime, they weren't going to get the job done. Critical. This was a tie ball game with under a minute to go. I believe about 40 seconds to go, when UConn was called for a controversial over the back call, and Dan Hurley made matters worse for his UConn Huskies by telling the refs they quote effing stink, which led to a technical foul. I believe Memphis made all 4 free throws, and they would go on to win this game because of that. You hate to see it when your coach keeps you from winning a game. It kind of feels like that happened. Sean, I know you feel like Hurley was sticking up for his guys, but that is a tough time to get a technical 40 seconds left in the game.
Well, yes, I applaud the fact that he was standing up for his players and that he kind of continued to do that in the postgame. And at this point, I'm not sure a fine is coming his way. It is, but it hasn't been announced yet. But, like, McNeely gets that rebound and then dishes it to, I think it was Caravan right next to him, who lays it in. So instead of UConn being up 2 with 40-something seconds left, they're down 4. That's a 6-point swing. Because of the refs. They said Hurley crossed the line. He looked like he crossed the line before the first media timeout, Mike. He was in their grill early, and I think if they probably had a chance to redo it, I think they would have got him earlier with the technical, established the fact that this sort of behavior is not going to stand, and then it wouldn't be a problem later in the game. They didn't do that, but obviously, you can't do that if you're a coach, and clearly he said something that I'm not sure. I don't think they wanted to do it, but they really gave that game away if you think about it, because P.J. Haggerty, Memphis' best player, was fouled out in the regulation. So he didn't play for a whole 5 minutes in overtime, and you still couldn't outscore him. Disappointing from UConn in this one, Mike. The alarming thing is I don't think they did anything terribly. I just don't think their team is anywhere near as talented as it has been. And Memphis has a lot of long, big athletes who can get hot. They made some shots, and they end up on the wrong one of this one. But I do think Memphis probably a fringe top 25 team, and UConn certainly nowhere near the number 2 ranking that they had next to their name.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the amount of talent that UConn lost. They're also playing a lot of guys. You look at this game against Colorado. They played 11 guys in this game. That's a lot. And 9 of those 11 guys played 13 minutes or more. So they're doing a little bit of hockey shift work going here. But look, Hurley crosses the line frequently. He oftentimes does not get teed up. For what reason, I know not. But he even maybe went over the line today again against Colorado. And we'll get to this game in a little bit, but it just kind of, hurt them in the wrong time, the wrong place. Not a good time to be cursing out the refs. So not a good look for Hurley, not a good look for UConn. You thought they may be going out for blood in this Colorado game afterwards, and they lost this game by a point, got outscored in the second half by 9 points, Sean, giving up 41 points in the second half.
And had they bounced back and demolished Colorado and won their game tomorrow, you'd think, like, all right, you leave 2-1, not the end of the world. You're still figuring out your new team, but they kind of did punch first today, though. I mean, they were up double digits most of the first half, and you think, all right, this is going to be 15 to 20 point win because Colorado's not very good, and I'm not really changing my opinion on them here. Colorado is not very good. They lost to Michigan State handily yesterday, and Mike, Michigan State was under 10% from three, and they still lost by a lot.
Lost, yeah.
Michigan State is well, this is a Big East video, but Michigan State is Michigan State. Like, they're probably not a top 25 team, but they probably are a tournament team, and you're going to get some tough defense, and if a couple shots go down, maybe they can beat a good team, but that wasn't a good Michigan State performance. That was an easy Michigan State win, and then Colorado comes back and wins today. And, Mike, UConn will be playing in the 7th place game in Maui tomorrow. They do have a chance to salvage their trip with one win, but even if they do, this Colorado loss is going to sting for a while.
Yeah, this is really going to sting. This is kind of, I think, really the alarming game where we realize we don't have the same UConn team from last year. You can forgive a tough loss to a good Memphis team when your coach gets a technical foul coming down the stretch, but losing this Colorado game was unacceptable. Who knows, maybe it was a little hangover after the loss. Team wasn't feeling too good, but inexcusable performance there. It's not going to get much easier for UConn. They got to go back and they got to host Baylor. Given Baylor hasn't looked that great to start the season, but they're going to have to get right back in the saddle of a pretty tough conference slate coming up. So it's not getting easier for UConn until they get to the actual beginning of conference play, where it will probably get a lot easier because the Big East stinks this year.
And Mike, they play Baylor. They go on the road to Texas. Then they, I guess, play host to Gonzaga in New York City. That'll be mostly a New York or a UConn crowd. And then, Mike, they might play the only other team in the Big East that doesn't stink in their first game in conference, and that's Xavier, who picked up a nice victory yesterday. We'll mention them later. But alarm bells for sure going off. There's really the conference as a whole. There are 4 undefeated teams, and one of them is DePaul. So there's 3 undefeated teams, and one of them is Providence, which we just mentioned in another video. And if they were to win Atlantis, Mike, that would be shocking. But anything to add here on UConn before we talk about another team that looked bad today in the Big East?
I'm ready to keep talking about other teams that are pretty bad in the Big East. I think you're going to go to Creighton next.
Yep. So we're going to go to Creighton. They started off the Players Era Festival in Las Vegas today against San Diego State. And they come in off of getting stuffed in a locker by Nebraska at home. Ryan Kalkbrenner does not have a field goal. And, Mike, it was more of the same today. The Aztecs win by 18. They hold Creighton to just 53 points. And alarm bells are going off for Greg McDermott and the Jays here. I could see them losing this game, but not like this. This was bad for Creighton.
Yeah, this was a really bad game. And you look at Creighton, you expected them to be a lot better. They got Pop Isaacs, who was a big ad in the transfer portal. Kalkbrenner's coming back. You expected a lot out of him. But this Creighton team just got worked over against San Diego State. I think San Diego State's a pretty good ball club in this game. But you look at the rebound totals, you expect Kalkbrenner and McAndrew to really dominate the boards. Look, Kalkbrenner only had 5 rebounds in this game. And the Creighton Jays tied San Diego State in the rebounding game. That's not something that you expected to see going into this one. You also look at, turnovers. They're not really turning the ball over that much. They only have 10 turnovers in this game, but they're 6 of 31 from behind the arc. Look, if you're a bad three-point shooting team, or if you're just having a bad day, stop shooting them. Don't shoot 31 shots. That is a great recipe for they're not getting good looks, so they're chucking up threes at the end of a shot clock, and that's why you have such a high number probably. But this Creighton offense looked awful today.
Yeah, it really did. And Kalkbrenner started off the season incredibly with that 49-point effort. It seems like teams are really trying to take him away, and Creighton hasn't really adjusted to that yet, Mike. You mentioned McAndrew. He was 4 of 11 from 3, and you might not think that percentage is all that great. That leaves you 2 of 20 the other players on Creighton from 3, 2 of 20. So that is 10%. That is bad. And they do turn around tomorrow. They get to play a Texas A&M team who also lost today. They're not going to be wanting to go 0-2. So it's pretty likely. I think at this point, Mike, we can say it's pretty likely Creighton comes in 4th place in the group with 2 losses. And a couple of their bye games were a little bit too close. And people are saying, oh, they're just figuring things out. Stephen Ashworth did miss the game today. Not sure how long he'll be out for. He certainly would have helped, but you can't really complain about that when you lose by this margin. So
yeah, I mean, Pop Isaacs has got to be better for Creighton. You look at, he's the point guard. He's supposed to be the distributor of the ball. Look, this guy shot 20 shots today. He only had 18 points. He was 2 of 10 from 3-point range. 2 of 10. That's awful. So you got to be able to distribute the ball and get it to your teammates, trust them that they're going to make a good play. And it's clear that there wasn't a whole lot of that today. So a lot of issues for Creighton, a lot of red flags. And I don't think it's going to get much better for them going forward after, as you said, they got, quote, stuffed in a locker against Nebraska. So
they get Texas A&M. They get Texas A&M tomorrow, Mike, and they likely get Rutgers or Notre Dame in Game 3. Yeah. If weirder things happen and then it's Houston or Alabama, I mean, that'll just be Creighton's luck at this point. But I think they're headed for last. Texas A&M is really physical, and I think San Diego State out-physicaled Creighton today. Brian Dutcher's teams are not weak ever, but they run good X's and O's. They have good fundamentals. They do things right. They're not kind of the team that will throw everything at the boards like Texas A&M, like Buzz Williams, defense, high pressure, all that. I think that might play even more against Creighton. So I think Creighton will lose tomorrow to Texas A&M.
Yeah, I agree. A&M didn't look good today, but I still have a lot of trust issues with Creighton right now.
All right, Mike, we're going to put our Big East Stinks segment on hold for just a minute here because Xavier is undefeated, and they're actually looking all right so far. They knocked off Wake Forest at home handily, and then they took down South Carolina in the Fort Myers tip-off, and they have the Michigan Wolverines tomorrow. So, Mike, they hold Colin Murray-Boyles to just 13 points, and they cruise to a pretty easy double-digit victory against the Gamecocks. We're starting to find Xavier's starting lineup, 2 or 3 decent contributors off the bench. Xavier's in the top 25, and with how bad the rest of the conference is, you have to like Xavier's chance to get back to the NCAA tournament this year.
Yeah, I don't think South Carolina is a particularly good team, but Xavier showed out in the second half, outscoring the Gamecocks by 14 points. So they got themselves back into this game and controlled it coming down the stretch. So you like that ability for Xavier to do that. We haven't seen a good Xavier team in a while, and I think basketball is better when one of these Cincinnati teams is having a good year. So they had 5 scorers in double figures in this game. You got to like what the Musketeers did to win in Fort Myers today. So if they won, I think it would have been more embarrassment for the Big East. But, I think it's kind of the bare minimum that they needed. So good job by Xavier for pulling up the conference.
And, Mike, I think about them is they're pretty old. Davion McKnight is a senior. Zach Freemantle is a senior. Jerome Hunter is a senior. Ryan Conwell is a junior. Their contributors have been around, and not all of it at Xavier, but they've been around. They've played high-quality college basketball games. And Sean Miller did have a decent first season at Xavier. Did take a step back last year, but he lost 2 players before the season. It looks like last year was more the exception than the rule. And it looks like they're headed back to the NCAA tournament, even if they sort of just go 13-7, 12-8 in the Big East. Looks like they're headed to at this point, you have to say, a top 3 finish in the league.
Yeah.
All right, absolutely. Mike, we talked plenty about St. John's in another video. Things aren't looking so great for them, but at least they're competing against some of these good teams, and they do have a big win on the schedule so far. You have another team that we've been hard on this year, and it's Villanova, Mike. They are struggling once again. They're 3-4 on the season with losses to Columbia, St. Joe's, and Virginia. And Mike, they head up to New Jersey to play in the Empire Classic against Maryland. And despite getting 38 points from the Wildcats, Maryland comes out on top. So Eric Dixon might be Big East first team, but I think that's where all the optimism ends for Villanova.
Yeah, I mean, clearly a lot better of a game. But this is a game where Villanova had it in the bag and then completely gave it up. You would have felt a lot more encouraged, but Villanova now falling to 3-4 on the regular season. It would be fine if they were playing all good teams, but Virginia's not particularly good. That's a 10-point loss, a 7-point loss to St. Joe's, and then that a really embarrassing loss to Columbia by 10 points at home. So this is a really bad Villanova team, probably the worst one I've seen maybe in my lifetime. So you wonder if they're going to make a change at head coach at the end of this season. I would think that they probably would if things continue this way.
I would think so also with Eric Dixon running out of eligibility. There's no reason to keep Neptune around for Dixon because Dixon will have to go either way. But things are not looking good for Villanova. All right, Mike, we talked about Seton Hall plenty in our Charleston Classic video. While we don't think they're going to do anything special, they're in a much better spot than they were a week ago. And then the other teams in the Big East are all kind of doing their thing. So I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to our Big East Stinks segment. Hopefully, for the conference's sake, that this is the last one. But I have a feeling it's not going to be. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.